Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I'm back. Good to be back. Was not planning on talking about Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes here on a Tuesday here on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel, but stuff changes quickly and something popped onto my, kind of my radar, if you will, that I do think is worth just spending a few minutes discussing. We have obviously spent a lot of time talking about Coach Prime and the Buffs. Sunday night, we reacted to that incredible victory over Baylor. What does it mean for the season ahead? Monday, we reacted to some sound from Coach Prime after that game. He said that he believes this team's best football is ahead. He believes that they are even better than they have shown, a sentiment that I would say that I largely agree with about this team. But I bring it up because he did say something on Tuesday that I do think is worth discussing, and it kind of plays off something that we kind of briefly mentioned in that Monday recap clip. In that segment, we talked about big picture stuff, but I said, look, like, things are going good for Colorado right now. Oh, by the way, they got a commitment flip from a 4-star safety high school football recruit named Antonio Branch Jr. on Monday. And I just kind of mentioned it in passing, didn't think much of it. The kid was committed to Penn State. He was in Boulder this weekend for the Colorado-Baylor game, was there for the histrionics and hysteria, whatever you want to call it, liked what he saw, and on Monday morning, he officially flipped from Penn State to Colorado, And so I bring it up because if that alone was basically, if that was the only news piece, I don't know that I would have discussed it. But it's worth noting that Coach Prime actually, he let out a little something, a little wink, wink, nod, nod. I don't know if you can wink, wink when you're wearing sunglasses, everywhere you go. But Coach Prime said something very interesting at his Tuesday press conference. It was to preview Baylor, it was to preview Central Florida transparently. And, honestly, most of it was basically exactly what you would have thought. It was talking about Central Florida. It was moving ahead to UCF this weekend. And also it was about returning to Florida. It was about injury updates, Shiloh, is he coming back, all that good stuff. Well, I bring it up because there was one interesting nugget that did come out. Coach Prime, was asked about the commitment of Antonio Branch Jr. And for people who don't follow recruiting on a day-to-day basis, coaches are not allowed to actually talk about specific recruits in the high school ranks until they sign an actual letter of intent. So the reporter was kind of vague, but he said, hey, you got a big recruiting commitment this past weekend. What do you think it means for the program? What do you think it means going forward? And Coach Prime kind of just smiled. Coach Prime kind of just laughed. And I loved what he said. He goes, a commitment. He goes, a commitment. He goes, I thought we actually got 3. And then he kind of joked and he smiled. He said, oops, don't think I was supposed to say that. And so I bring it up because you talk about the impact of what could have been a major win and a major recruiting weekend. It looks like Coach Prime and Colorado are about to go on a little bit of a recruiting run here. Some public, some not yet public. And listen, I know if you're a college football fan, we all know, you need more than a recruit or two to build a program. But this is once again proof. Colorado, Coach Prime getting kids that, frankly, they never got in the past before he got there. And it goes back to what I said on Sunday's show. This guy, for all of the negativity, it has been nothing but positive for Colorado. He has this program in such a better place than it once was. Let's talk really quickly about maybe some of the potential commitments, the one that we do know about. As I mentioned, Antonio Branch Jr. is the one that we know that is official, okay? As I said, 6'1", 6'2" safety, 4-star according to 24/7, or according to On3. I think On3, by the way, has the best football recruiting people in the business. Steve Wiltfong's as good as it gets. Obviously, Hayes Fawcett is incredible. But I bring it up because a 4-star in On3. But here's the other thing that really kind of stands out to me about the fact that this kid was committed to Penn State. I know that James Franklin gets a lot of flack. I know that he doesn't win nearly enough big games, and that is something that we have discussed on this show quite a bit. But the one thing that we need to give James Franklin credit for, he and his staff are known for really a couple things. One, the defense is always really good. The secondary is always really good. Remember, last year, they had a national championship caliber defense. Michigan, who could move the ball on everybody, literally could not throw the ball because every time they dropped back, there were 7 dudes in their face. But really what James Franklin is as good at and his staff is as good at as anybody is evaluating kids early, offering kids early, and then getting them committed before everybody kind of picks up on how good they are. By the way, I'll give you the best example there is. They famously got a commitment from Justin Fields. You heard of him, the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, formerly of the Chicago Bears. Remember, he was originally committed to Penn State. That is just one example, but they evaluated him early. They offered him early. They got the commitment early. Then obviously the kids from Georgia. Eventually, Georgia does come around, does offer. They're a little bit later. You can't blame a Georgia kid for wanting to go to Georgia. He ends up at Ohio State, whatever. But again, this is what James Franklin and his staff are known for. So if James Franklin was ahead of the curve on this kid, got the commitment, then I believe that this dude is a player, and I believe that this kid can be a contributor in college football and probably a really high-level type kid as well. By the way, you don't need me to tell you, but that Penn State defense is filthy. They have produced a ton of defensive backs through the years. And oh, by the way, I know it is very, very, very early in the season, but that defense, again, looks lights out. Now, it is worth noting, it's hard to really know so far because, of course, Penn State has only played West Virginia, Kent State, and somebody else. But last year, by the way, 7th in the country in pass defense, 12 interceptions as a team. They were really, really, really dynamic. I think the big question now is who's next, right? Coach Prime references that there are not one, but 2 silent commitments. Let's go ahead and dive into who those could possibly be. First of all, I do think it is pretty obvious who probably one of the other ones is. Byron Baldwin Jr., another 4-star defensive back, was on campus this week. Multiple reports as soon as the visit went final indicated that he either was ready to flip or already has flipped. And if Coach Prime can seal this one, this is another big recruiting win for Coach Prime and the Buffs. First of all, safety, athletic, big. One thing about Coach Prime, we know he can evaluate defensive backs. Travis Hunter goes without saying. Shiloh will probably play in the NFL, although I don't know how much evaluating went into that one as much as just landing him. We know, it didn't work out with Cormani McClain, but we know how good he was. DJ McKinney, by the way, on the roster right now. Coach Prime says is an NFL player. Cameron Silmon Craig is phenomenal, playing at a very elite level. So we know Coach Prime can evaluate defensive backs. And if this Byron Baldwin Jr. kid commits, this is just another really, really big one. Worth noting, by the way, with Byron Baldwin Jr., I think it's worth noting where he is committed to. He's committed to Indiana. And listen, I know a lot of people, Indiana football, what does that even mean? First of all, 4-star safety, top 250 prospect according to 24/7 Sports. But beyond that, it's the school that he's committed to. I know that Indiana of recent memory doesn't have much football history outside of about a 4-game stretch when Michael Penix was unstoppable during the COVID season. But at the same time, the new coaching staff is the real deal. Curt Cignetti, remember, he came from James Madison. James Madison went 11-1 a year ago under his watch. He has come to Indiana. They're 4-0 early, dominated. I think I looked it up. I think the average margin of victory is like 37, 38 points. This guy knows football. He knows how to evaluate. He knows how to develop. So if this kid, Byron Baldwin Jr., is committed to Indiana, when he flips, because it sounds like it's imminent, that's another big time get. To me, listen, first of all, flipping kids is the name of the game. But where are you flipping them from? These are 2 great staff. These are 2 staffs in Penn State with Antonio Branch Jr. and, of course, Indiana with Byron Baldwin Jr. that are elite evaluating staffs and elite developmental staff. So if you are flipping kids from those 2 schools, you're doing well. The big question to me, Coach Prime said there's a third one. Coach Prime said there's a third player. By the way, this is all in real time. I'm recording here about 9 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesday. So if a kid flips at 10, don't be mad at me if the news is outdated. What would be interesting to me, though, is trying to figure out who's the third kid that's actually committed to Colorado, a silent commit. As of right now, the only player that I'm aware of that we know was on campus this weekend at Colorado was Carday Smith. And if Coach Prime could land this one, you talk about a big name that you could potentially land if you're Colorado. This kid is 6'5". He is a 4-star offensive tackle. We know that's always an area of priority for everybody. But 6'5" offensive tackle, was committed to Auburn, flipped to USC over the summer. He's the only player that I'm aware of, that I know of, that was on campus this past weekend at Colorado. There might be others, and maybe he's not the kid. So I am not putting it out there. I'm not saying this is the kid. But if Coach Prime did flip this kid, these are the kind of kids that you build the program with. Again, not saying he's the kid, but think it's worth noting. If you could get those big boys up front, we see the difference. Listen, the O-line this year, it's not the best O-line ever, but you can see when it's just a little bit better, the difference it can make in a run game, in an offense, etc. So we'll see if Carday Smith is the third kid. I'm not speculating. I'm just saying he's the only other kid that we know that was officially on campus. But I bring it up to very simply say, listen, this is all proof of all the stuff I've talked about with Coach Prime, okay? First of all, I said it on Sunday's show. You know, everybody wants to tear down Coach Prime and how long is he going to be there and, whatever. Bottom line is this program is in such better shape than it was when he got there. Just think about what I said on Sunday's show. They have played 4 games so far this season. 4 nationally televised standalone games. Not standalone, but you know what I mean. 4 nationally televised games on 4 different networks. Week 1, North Dakota State on ESPN. Week 2, against Nebraska on NBC. By the way, that's the highest rated college football game in primetime for NBC since they got the Big Ten package. That's a fact. Week 3, Colorado State, CBS. Week 4, Baylor, Fox. And so I just bring it up because the impact that this guy is having. Listen, I know people don't love that they stormed the field after the game on Saturday, but guess what? You know what that says to me? People are in the stands and people care, and that is something that did not happen before Coach Prime got there. The other thing this shows me, regardless of who the other 2 are, outside of Antonio Branch Jr., it is that if Coach Prime can get a kid on campus, it's basically a wrap. Listen, we talked a lot about Colorado during the portal process a year ago, and I remember talking about this at the time. I said, look, man, it seemed like every kid that he got on campus committed to Colorado. That first weekend, he had all the offensive linemen, Khalil Benson, who's now starting, Tyler Johnson, I believe, the guard from Texas or from Houston who started his career at Texas. They all committed early. Later on in the cycle, you get the Wade twins from Kentucky. You get the Wester brothers, LaJonte, who obviously caught that game win or game tying, I guess it was, not technically game tying, but 31-24, made it 31-30. But him and his brother from Florida Atlantic. You go on and on down the list. If Coach Prime gets you on campus, it's almost a done deal. And so I don't want to keep going. We only know of one officially and one unofficially. I'm not going to speculate on who the third one is other than what we know publicly. But I'm just here to say, man, listen, I'm naive. I'm crazy. I still believe in Coach Prime. I still believe in what he's doing. And I'll say this. They got about 5 or 6 more home games. His number one priority, get kids on campus. Because if he can get kids on campus, he is going to get them to commit. Appreciate everybody's support. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Oh, by the way, our primetime t-shirts, they are selling like hotcakes. You want to support the show, grab yours. Appreciate all of you. I'll be back.